Welcome to Echoes of History, where we return to the past not to glorify it, but to understand it.
Because sometimes the most powerful names in history are also the most uncomfortable ones.
Today's name still carries fear.
Genghis Khan,
A conqueror, a destroyer, a lawgiver, a world changer.
was he a monster or a mastermind?
He was the architect who laid the foundation for what would become the largest contiguous land empire in history. He connected the East to the West.
But at what cost, Mars? We are talking about millions of people dead, entire cities wiped off the map. When I hear his name, I don't think architect, I think apocalypse.
And you aren't wrong. The destruction was real. But history is rarely black and white, Rae. It is usually a shade of bloody gray. To understand the world we live in today, we have to look at the man who broke the old world apart.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. I imagine a man who conquers the world must have been born into power, right? A prince in a palace?
Far from it. He was born as Temujin in the brutal landscape of the Mongolian steppe.
Steppe? That's like vast grasslands, right?
Exactly. Miles of open grass, harsh winds, and freezing winters. No cities, just nomadic tribes, groups of families moving with their animals. And Temujin's life started with tragedy. When he was just 9 years old, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe.
9 years old. He was just a child.
A child with a target on his back. His own tribe didn't want to feed a widow and her orphans. They abandoned Temujin and his family on the steppe to die.
That is horrific. They left a mother and children to starve.
It was a death sentence. They had to eat rats and wild onions to survive. Temujin learned a very hard lesson early on. The world is cruel, and trust is a luxury you cannot afford.
It sounds like a villain's origin story. He was betrayed by his own people.
It was, but it also toughened him. He survived, and as he grew, he realized that the old way of the tribes, where you only trusted your blood relatives, was weak. It caused constant fighting.
So, how did he fix it? How do you stop centuries of tribal warfare?
You changed the rules. Temujin began to gather followers, but he didn't care about their last name or their lineage. He cared about their skill.
A meritocracy?
Exactly. Meritocracy means leading based on ability, not birthright. If you were a great archer or a brilliant strategist, Temujin gave you power, even if you were a shepherd or a former enemy.
That must have made the noble families furious.
It did. But Temujin's army was stronger because it was led by the best men, not the richest. By 1206, he had united all the tribes of the steppe. That is when they gave him the title, Genghis Khan.
Universal ruler.
Precisely. But a ruler needs an army. And the Mongol army was unlike anything the world had ever seen.
I've read about this. They were horse archers, right?
Yes, but that simplifies it. They were virtually born in the saddle. They could ride for days without stopping, sleeping on their horses, drinking their horses' blood if they ran out of water. They were fast, mobile, and terrifying.
Speed kills.
Speed is the weapon that kills before the enemy draws a sword. European and Chinese armies were heavy and slow. The Mongols were like smoke. They would attack, pretend to run away, and then, when the enemy chased them and broke their formation, the Mongols would turn around and slaughter them.
The feigned retreat. It's a classic trick, but they perfected it.
But here is the problem, Rae. Horses cannot jump over stone walls. The great civilizations, China, Persia, lived in fortified cities.
Right. A siege, waiting outside a city until they run out of food, takes years. Nomads don't have that kind of patience.
Genghis didn't wait. He adapted. When he invaded China, he captured their engineers. He learned how to build catapults, trebuchets, and gunpowder bombs. He combined the speed of the steppe with the technology of the city.
That is terrifyingly brilliant. But this brings us to the dark part, Mars, the terror.
Yes, we cannot skip this.
The stories say that if a city resisted, he didn't just defeat them, he annihilated them, men, women, children, cats and dogs.
It was calculated cruelty. Genghis Khan used terror as a weapon. If a city surrendered immediately, he would often spare them. He wanted their taxes and their skills. But if they killed his ambassadors or fought back,
he made an example of them.
He would kill everyone and pile their skulls into a pyramid. He wanted the next city to hear the news and surrender before he even arrived.
It's psychological warfare. Resistance is suicide.
Exactly. In the city of Nishapur, after his son-in-law was killed, the orders were to kill every living thing so that no head was left on a body.
It's hard to call someone a great leader when they are responsible for that much blood. It feels wrong.
I understand that. But here is the paradox, Rae. The man who burned cities also created the safest era of trade the world had ever known.
You're talking about the Silk Road?
Yes. Before Genghis Khan, the Silk Road, the trade route connecting China to Europe, was dangerous. Bandits, warring kingdoms, corrupt local lords. It was a gamble to travel it.
And under the Mongols,
it became a single unified highway. Genghis established the Yasa, his code of law. It was strict, but it was fair. He wiped out banditry. They said a young woman could walk from one end of the empire to the other carrying a pot of gold, and no one would harm her.
That's a powerful image. Peace through absolute control.
And he established the Yam system, a postal service with stations every few miles. Messages that used to take months could now travel across the empire in days. He built the internet of the 13th century.
Okay, I'll admit that is impressive. But what about culture? Usually, conquerors force their religion on the people they defeat.
That is the other surprise. Genghis Khan was a shamanist. He worshipped the spirits of the sky and earth. But he allowed total religious freedom.
Really? In the Middle Ages? When Europe was burning heretics?
Yes. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Taoists, they all lived and debated in his court. He believed that praying to different gods might help him, so why ban any of them? He even exempted priests and monks from taxes.
He taxed the merchants but not the priests. That sounds oddly modern.
He was practical. If you didn't rebel, he didn't care who you prayed to. This openness allowed ideas to flow. Gunpowder, paper money, the compass, medical knowledge, these things moved west because of the Mongol Empire.
So, without Genghis Khan, we might not have had the Renaissance in Europe?
It's very possible. The Mongols destroyed, but they also connected.
But Mars, if these advancements were paid for with the lives of tens of millions and the destruction of entire cultures, is that progress really worth it? Can we truly celebrate the compass if it was delivered across a bridge of corpses? That is the ultimate paradox. Civilization is often built on the ashes of the old world.
That is the ultimate paradox. Civilization is often built on the ashes of the old world.
On one hand, he's a genius who promoted meritocracy, supported free trade, and allowed religious freedom. On the other hand, he's a butcher.
That is the trap of history. We want heroes or villains. Genghis Khan was neither. He was a force of nature. He reshaped the geography of the world.
Do you think he regretted the violence towards the end?
There is a story that near the end of his life, he asked a Taoist monk if there was a secret to immortality.
Let me guess. The monk said no.
Correct. The monk told him that to extend his life, he needed to control his desires and stop the killing. Genghis didn't stop the wars, but he respected the monk enough to call him friend.
He wanted to live forever. In a way, he did. His DNA is everywhere.
True. A study showed that millions of men alive today are direct descendants of Genghis Khan. He is quite literally in our blood.
So, Mars, let's go back to my first question. Monster or mastermind?
He was a mastermind who used monstrous methods. He proved that a united world is powerful, but he proved it by drowning the world in blood.
I think I see him differently now. Not better, just more real. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He was a human who survived hell and decided to make the world fear him so he would never be hurt again.
A survivor who became a conqueror. And the world was never the same.
What do you think, listeners? Can you call a man great if his empire is built on bones? Or does the stability he created justify the cost? Tell us what you think.
Because at echoes of history,
The past never disappears.
it echoes.